All right, it is 6 o'clock. I'm going to officially call this meeting to order. Thank you all for being here tonight. We do have two of our directors that are not going to be able to join us tonight. One had previously let us know that she was going to be out of town, which was Sandy Tarswell, and Matt did let us know this evening that he is still on a fire and unable to make it in. So at this time, I would like to have everybody rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Have you had a chance to take a look at the agenda for this evening?
Yes, I have.
All right.
Move to adopt the agenda.
I guess I will second that. So it's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the agenda has passed. And now we have a very special part of this meeting where we will get to have the administering of the oath of office to Carla Knutson Johnston, who's taking the position of at-large Director District Number 1, which was a board vacancy. So we are going to have Patty McGuire, the Mason County Auditor, swear Carla in. And go ahead and start.
Carla, if you'll repeat after me, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Carla Knutson Johnston,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and the state of Washington,
and the state of Washington,
that I am legally qualified
that I am legally qualified
to assume the office of
to assume the office of
Shelton School District Director,
Shelton School District Director,
at large, position number 1,
at large, position number 1.
that I will support the Constitution and laws
I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States and the state of Washington,
of the United States and of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of this office
discharge the duties of this office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Carla, we would love to have you come up here, and now we will have a board quorum. But thank you very much for taking the effort and the time to apply for this open board position and go through the interview process. We're very excited to have you here on the board with us, serving your community and the students.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be on the board.
All right. We will move now into the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you, Board President Davidson. First, I would just like to also congratulate our new director, Carla Knutson Johnston, for joining us. It's really nice to have a educator up here. I think it's part of the board. That's been some of the history here for the Shelton School District. We are a learning organization. I think now, just as much as any other time, public education is a part of, is the number one center for every community. And I really do believe that. I think when we think of all the things we want as part of a democracy, and you start thinking about how much we should appreciate all the things that we do have when you hear the news every day about places like Ukraine and other places that really struggle. I think this here for us is about education. What are we doing to prepare our students to be truly college and career ready, but also really productive citizens, again, in the democracy that we were very fortunate to have. And so Carla brings that perspective, longtime educator here across all 3 elementaries, and very, very tied to the community, so that her perspectives will help, again, shape us as we move forward, along with, obviously, our very fortunate other board directors who also have experience in government and as well as long-held leadership here in the Shelton area. So that's as a superintendent, I feel I feel really blessed about that part. So it's really good for us. Also, extremely excited to have Angela Ramirez Herrera here. Angela's over there. I already saw her bright smile, so if you get a chance to see it, you're going to be fortunate too. Leaders just like Angela are just exactly what we're trying to develop here in the Shelton School District underneath our strategic plan, Shelton's Success. So I can't wait to hear the thoughts and what's going on over at Cedar High School. And from specifically Angela's perspective, student voice does matter. It's in our beliefs if you haven't checked it out in the strategic plan. And so I'm fortunate to be able to hear from Angela here for this over the course of this year, the whole school year, Angela. We've just kicked off a new school year. It's gone very smoothly. I think I am very proud of all of our almost 800 staff that we have here coming together to make sure that that our doors are wide open, that we do have a safe and welcoming environment that is culturally and linguistically welcoming for them, and that we are adding a lot of new things: literacy, rigor, engagement, and powerful, positive relationships. So those are the things that we're really keyed up on. And I want to say a special thank you to Linda Arnold and our HR team for making sure, again, that we are staffed, have an educator in every single classroom at the start of the school year. Hearing just recently in the news that there was a shortage of 300,000 educators across the nation. I think we here are not just fortunate, but that we have been working on this actually for a while. So it was not by luck, it was by design. And I think people actually, when they get here, they're very excited. At least the educators I talked to in our summer session were really excited to be here just because we are about supporting our educators and that we have a really good plan to support them and obviously our students and our families. Just real quickly, sports is going well. The little high participation rates all across the board. So it's really nice at our middle, junior high, and high school, and that our football team is 2-0. So they're perfect so far. Moving on, the pool is a really important piece of our community. And we actually have water in the pool, so that's awesome. It's not, there was just some cracks in the plaster. We quickly repaired it. I know Robert Heron's out there. He's leading the effort. And so we are this close from opening it back up, but we do have to have it certified. Now, currently, it was going to be the city, but now we're moving to the state. So we're just waiting for them to come certify it so that we can officially open it up. For obvious reasons, a pool is something you would want to certify for all sorts of reasons to make sure that it is safe for usage for our students and the community. So look for more to come very soon, but I just think that we're getting right on that. So I feel that's really good for us. And then the last part, which is something probably a little pedantic, but is something that I think is really important, is our school improvement plans. Tonight we kick them off. We have Shelton High School, Principal Bruce Kipper, and I know I see his leadership team over there as well. Lots of work in these. I know a lot of times people say school improvement plan, and they go, well, what is that? Or is that a compliance document? And for the Shelton School District, that truly is our binding document. I don't think people understand how important that document is, because these were all crafted by teacher leaders and by our school leaders together, and they are nested directly beneath our strategic plan. So it's not just like a strategic plan that you put on the shelf that's in a binder. It's literally the strategic plan that rolls directly to all 8 of our schools. Again, tonight we're going to hear from Shelton High School. What are they specifically doing on the strategic plan is what you will hear tonight. And then why are we going to be held all of ourselves accountable, not just the staff at Shelton High School, but all of the staff here in the Shelton School District are accountable to the outcomes at SHS. So that's how we roll here. That's what will make us truly successful because they're all of our students. So I'm really excited to hear about that this evening, and I hope you are too, about what exactly is going on in our schools, and again, related to our strategic plan. So that was a lot, lots going on. You can just see that by tonight's agenda. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your report. At this time, we will go into community comments, and I do have one on the list here. I don't know if we have any that have dialed in or coming in electronically. It looks like no. So I will read our standard language around community comments, and then I will call you up to the podium. As part of the regular school board meeting, the board invites community members to make public comments in person and/or by phone as conditions allow. If speaking in person, please follow the public comment procedure by signing in and stating your name and address at the podium when called by the board chair. If making comments by phone, please dial 1-253-215-8782 and enter meeting ID number 854-3386-9913. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items that are not on the agenda. The board will direct the superintendent to follow up on any items that arise during public comment as appropriate. The board will not allow complaints against an individual staff member or student in open session unless that individual has requested an open public hearing. So Tina Lovejoy Schaefer, if you could come up to the podium, please. And when you're ready, go ahead and speak.
Well, I have a couple issues to discuss. My first issue started with having some issues with scheduling changes for my Running Start student. I tried to speak to someone at the high school regarding it. No one bothered to return a phone call. Someone did finally email me, but I specifically left them my phone number because I don't have time for emails. So after no one replied for that, then I called the district office. What started out as a small needing to be discussed issue turned into a huge issue. When I called the district office, I was told to go to the website, fill out some anonymous tip. Okay, I told the lady I didn't have time for that. I work on a closed circuit for work. I don't have time for that. That's why I'm calling on the phone. She told me that there was no one there to help me. No one would speak to me on the phone. I said, okay, what are your hours for the district? 8 to 5. All right, I'll make time and I'll come down there in person. Then I was specifically told that if I came down in person, no one would speak to me. I'm rather appalled by it. What are they getting paid for? Makes me think they forget who they're working for, if they're working for the community. I'm a parent with an issue, and I'm being told no one can help me, whether it be on the phone or in person. Needless to say, it made me very livid, because I grew up in this community. This is not how we treat our people. It's just not. And personally, I think it's completely unprofessional behavior, telling someone that you can't help them at all. Additional to that, basically finding out where this public meeting is, this board meeting is, was very frustrating. Couldn't find the actual location, could find the date and the time. I ended up having to call OSPI in order to find out the location. And they even said it's in violation of the Open Public Meetings Act, RCW 42.30. The fact that it doesn't have the actual place. And it's not readily available to the public. I mean, you can go on the calendar, you can look it up. It says date, time, contact Katie Diamond. Well, public doesn't know who that is. Doesn't state the place. And it just comes down to, why should I have to take time out of my day to come down here when the district should know that this is their job, to communicate with parents regarding the students? It's completely unacceptable. And it seems to me like it's negligence on their part for not speaking to a parent on the phone and refusing to speak to them in person. And that's my issue. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And at this time, I don't think we have any other public comments unless there's someone who else would like to sign up that hasn't done that. And it doesn't look like that's the case, so we are going to move on to reports and recognitions. And the first up is 6.01. It is the introduction of the 2022-23 student school board representatives. And I'm going to let Superintendent Jesse do the introductions.
Great. Thanks, Board President Davidson. So here's part of the Shelton School District. We have student representatives for our 3 high schools. So first, Nieves Villa is our Choice High School representative. We have Angela Ramirez Herrera here from Cedar High School, and we have Richard Beckman, who is returning from Shelton High School, who was a school board student rep last year. The key thing about these particular leadership roles is that they, again, represent the voice of each of the schools, and that they have an opportunity to participate here in a public open forum to discuss specifically what's going on for the school, but as well as participate on other board, on other items on the school board agenda. So we feel very fortunate to have them here. I think having Angela here this evening is something that I feel, again, really endeared to have, make sure that we do understand how we're going to better serve our students, and then how they feel about some of the topics that we're moving forward on. So thank you so much, Angela, and thank you, Nieves and Richard, when they do show up, so I'm sure they will.
Yes, it'll be exciting to have all 3 of you here. But we will start with you. I'm going to move into 6.02 because that's going to be the reports from the student board representatives, and that's what we will do each meeting. So if you would like to tell us about how things are going at Cedar, we would love to hear it.
Thank you. As you know, this is Cedar's 3rd year and our 2nd year to actually have a facility. And we actually, at the end of this month, are now starting ASB elections, which we will have this year, which unfortunately last year we did not. We are starting club meetings this week, and leadership group is starting an open mic, which we are barely preparing for. And we're actually also starting our first projects, which, like, for example, we have how our diet is and has a relationship with the climate change, as well as in creative writing. They are writing their own biographies. In English/natural resources, they're making their own language up for the freshmen, which seems pretty fun for them. And we also have our project from last year, which is our ants. And those should live around over 30 years, so we will hopefully have them by then as well. And we are trying to get like swag coming in, so our school has more representation, because not much know about us.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure some swag would help with that.
Yes, it would.
That's always nice. No, thank you very much for telling us about some of the things that are going on. And did you say you have ants, like as in the little,
Yes.
like actual ants, bugs?
Last year, our seniors decided to have a group projects in our science class, and we got to actually choose what project we wanted to do. And we ended up purchasing a queen ant, and we were trying to see if the workers would survive throughout the summer, and we had one of our students take care of them. And now we feed them every morning. Someone is in charge of feeding them, and so far, I believe we're having some of the eggs hatched about the end of this month, hopefully.
Okay.
Really fun activity for the whole school.
And hopefully they're contained. Right?
Yes, they are.
All right, I don't know if you both have any comments or questions for our student representatives.
Thank you.
Very nice, Angela. I've had ant farms in a classroom before. You have to be careful not to shake them.
Yes, we do.
Those are good tips. All right. Well, yes, definitely welcome to the board, and we look forward to having the two other representatives here when they are able to join us. I am going to move into 6.03, which is a report on the services for English learners, and we're going to have Superintendent Jesse and Kat Kelly present today.
Good evening. This evening we're going to cover information about English language learners and the services we provide here in the Shelton School District. But before I get going on the presentation, I just want to introduce Kat Kelly. She's our new multilingual education coordinator. Kat previously was a teacher here in the Shelton School District over at Mountain View, and she is a just recently got her administrative certificate. So we really feel fortunate to have Kat here. So she is leading English language learner services for the Shelton School District, which is a new position, and you'll see why this evening as part of this presentation. Great. So up here is the agenda. We're going to be able to cover what were the English language learner services for the Shelton School District, where are we at now, and then where are we headed? So what's our plan? And I think the things is you'll see part of this is there's just been a lot of change in our overall demographics, a number of ELs we have, how services are configured, and then also about specifically student performance and why we need to make some changes. So change is the theme, a part of this, and I'm emphasizing that because historically, having been here now for over a year, and I've talked to a lot of people about English language learner services and the different types of programs and services and how we're structured for them. But the key is that what we were or what we people thought we are today is actually not true. There's a lot of misinformation around that, and so this presentation's hope to get some clarity for some folks who are tuning in, and that they also know where how we're defining some of the services we have here, specific again to English learners. Let's start off with some data. So I know in previous presentations here to the school board and to the public, we've talked about a significant change in enrollment for the number of ELs that we've had enrolled here. You can see back at the 2014-15 school year, which really doesn't for some of us feel very long ago, is that we had 451 students who qualify for English learner services. And since then, we are now, as you can see up in that graph, we are projected this year to have 1,000. That's a little less than a quarter of our students. So that's a huge change, and just in not only numbers but percentage-wise. So that to me is part of the storyline when we think about this is don't forget about how many more students we're talking about here, and then what does that really mean about how we're providing services and how we're structured to serve them just operationally or logistically. Great. And so the next series of slides, I'm going to have Kat go through them.
Thank you. It's not going to go in. So this is just a visual to help us understand some of the moves that the district has had to make in regards to some of those enrollment changes. So you can see pre-2016, The majority of our English learners at the elementary school level were at Evergreen. And then we moved toward more of a neighborhood school model, and that has resulted in this big shift. So we've seen a decrease in enrollment in our dual language program and an increase in enrollment of English learners and multilingual students across our other elementary school sites. Mountain View this year is going to be about 23% of their student population, which is representative of our district. Bordeaux at about 20%, and Evergreen probably around 70%. So we've had this, so in 2016, we started the reintegration process, and that started with kinder and rolled up. So this shift has kind of come into full fruition last school year, the 21-22 school year. And this percentage is the number of ELs meeting or exceeding standard in ELA. So we've had a pretty steady decrease in the number of students meeting standard, with, of course, that COVID year without applicable data. All school sites, effective 18-19, hosted an approved EL services program model, and including Cedars just this year, as it's in its third year, will have EL services there as well. So all 8 school sites now host services that are approved, which we will talk about in a couple slides, in regards to providing English language services. The other piece is that we needed to consider, go ahead, Allison. Who does it? Scott. Thanks, Scott. Operationalizing some of this. So operationalizing means you saw that this last year for enrollment, in our open enrollment window, we moved toward a lottery-based system. We're also needing to establish and operationalize some of our service models in Shelton School District. And this includes supportive mainstream, which is at all our school sites, which is a collaborative model, content-based Shelton instruction at OMS, OBJ, and Shelton High School. A newcomer, depending on our enrollment, which right now our newcomer enrollment is fairly low. And then, of course, our two-way English-Spanish dual language program housed at Evergreen. Newcomer, I apologize. Newcomer is defined in different ways. That's usually 2 years or fewer in country, and a newcomer program is usually targeted at secondary students. So, like I said, it's dependent on enrollment because we need to be responsive to who our students are, given different enrollment numbers. So this is just kind of a visual of how those different program models are represented in our student populations. So the majority of our students receiving EL services are in that supportive mainstream model. So what that means is, as we lean into our work on the strategic plan, we need to be thinking about those collaborative structures that are part of that supportive mainstream. So the students are in mainstream classes, and there'll be collaboration between the EL or teacher or multilingual specialist, and then, of course, their content or general education teachers. The small percentage of students who are in sheltered instruction, we have to think about how we provide certain direct services to help EL students develop their language skills, while also gaining access to that content knowledge in those content and general education classes. And then, of course, we have about 300 students who are in our two-way dual language program, which is one of the approved models from the state in terms of English language development for our limited English proficient students. And one of the big shifts we've seen with these enrollment numbers is we have fewer students who are receiving EL services who were born outside of country. The majority, and this is nationally, statewide, and locally, of our multilingual students are born right here in our community. So they are all our students. And this has been a trend. We still, like I said, see some of those newcomers who are newer to country. But there's not one kind of English learner. There's not one kind of multilingual student. And we need to be really careful when we're thinking about program models, about painting with a wide brush and trying to have a one-size-fits-all. Which can kind of lead into the legal requirements from the state level really are, we must identify students through our enrollment process. We must assess students to see if they qualify for language services. And then we must communicate with parents in a language accessible to them. and we must support their access to academic and extracurricular activities. And we must measure not just the individual student success, but the programmatic effectiveness. So, as I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. That's why we need to be responsive and dynamic to who our students are, the resources we have, and what our ultimate goals are. So when we think about the strategic plan, which guides a lot of this work and these practices that we're continuing to implement, we have to think about integration. So the laws around access to content require us to balance those intensive direct service needs with those content knowledge skills, right? So we have to be developing that English language piece at the same time as students are gaining access to the content, which is it's a dance to do. So we have those small number of students who are in those sheltered instruction classes who are going to reach that threshold in their English language ability to then access the content classes at the secondary level. And then we have our collaborative structures at our K-6 level, primarily, that are going to support those students in the mainstream. You know, because part of what can happen in a sheltered instruction model is we can end up with that lack of rigor and lack of exposure to all the standards, which is a legal requirement. But we also need to consider what are those needs, to, like I said, to meet that threshold of English language development. And I just want to stress that with the, moving toward 23 or 25% student enrollment in qualifying as limited English proficient, all our educators are accountable for these best practices, and part of the strategic plan is supporting and developing their professionalism around this student population. So when we consider these best practices in an actual classroom, students need to understand what is happening in the classroom, right? And one of the ideas is that they must be compelled to learn, and we have balanced literacy, which is that balanced approach of skills, knowledge, and then those English language, development. And so we have the students developing autonomy, and the balanced literacy approach is based in that student interest and student voice, while the teacher uses those strategies to scaffold those learners to become independent learners. And then we even have, at the high school, we have some really skilled teachers who are leveraging those student interests, needs, their story strength and needs, to make those lessons directly compelling to their students in their classroom. I had a great example from an educator yesterday who said that in his collaborative math class, he realized a couple students were working after school. He changed some of the problems just to reflect some financial literacy, and suddenly there's this idea that when you're compelled in an area, you acquire the knowledge, the skill, whether you want to or not. So suddenly the kids were like, well, wait a minute, that's not what my paycheck said. And there was that compelling piece, and I thought that was really skillful on his part. Without access to the content through the language, it can be really difficult, though. So we have to be really intentional. And so one of the things that came out of the English Language Task Force that Marianne helped lead last year were some strategies. So the instructional strategies are going to help that teachers provide those access points to engage in the learning, and then in order to be compelled to learn. So these 10 strategies, they were developed by a group of stakeholders, including educators, parents, students, and they can be applied in any context based on the teacher's intent. So depending on what their learning intention may be, they can use these strategies that they are going to be provided with ongoing professional development, because that's part of our Initiative 3 of those highly effective educators. So they support. So language acquisition, part of the opportunity is that it's an active process, right? There's that intention behind it, the intention on the part of the educator that but it is also that intention on the part of the student. And so it's a big lift to be learning a language and content and skills at the same time, but I feel really like we are in a good place to launch, to continue to launch that and continue to implement and support our growing students as well as our educators.
Thanks, Kat. So, one of the things a year ago, having conversations with folks, I was trying to understand about English Learner Services, and a lot of folks described, that's at Evergreen. I said, it's at Evergreen, and I was kind of confused because people are like, well, yeah, English learners, you know, if we have our Spanish-speaking families, they go to Evergreen. That's where they've been going. And so I was like, well, what is that? Oh, that's part of the dual language program. And I'm like, dual language program? I go, I've also talked to a lot of families where obviously they're not ELs, they're not English learners, and they were looking for cultural and linguistic enrichment through the dual language program. So it's really a cultural immersion program for those particular students, and for some of those students, it was a place where it was safe and welcoming. You could get a language maybe in your home language. But since that time that Kat had put up there, from 2015, also at that same time, is that we've had a significant increase in students who come from Guatemala, and their home language is not Spanish. It's Mamankonkable. The language that's spoken in the classroom's not Mamankonkable, it's Spanish. And so again, what we were is not what we are today. And so there's holdovers in some corners of our community and in the district. And I get that, because what the district didn't do was at the same time have a really comprehensive plan to match the change that was happening pretty rapidly. And so now we got a little catch up to do, or maybe in my eyes a lot. But I just wanted to really highlight that because that's a significant change in just the timeline of why that is and why I want to talk about specifically Evergreen and dual language is not because they've done something wrong or whatever, it's just changed. We had to change, right? 500 students who even qualify for ELs are not going to jam pack into Evergreen, because it would no longer be a neighborhood, it would be a no neighborhood school, and it would also be segregation, and we've been in violation of civil rights. Because you should have access to your neighborhood school. So that led to already another issue, which is another segment of the population, which is special education. It too has its own set of rules and regulations like EL services that Kat had gone over. One of the key rules about special education, and also for English learners, is access to what we call the general education environment. So you're in the classroom and you're not getting pulled out for whether that's a sheltered instruction, the way you want to term it, or what some people might say the special education classroom. That's really misspeaking, because what we really think about is about services. We don't want to label spaces, and we don't want to label students, we want to label the services. And in this particular instance, students with IEPs receiving special education services, they can't make up a majority of the kids in the gen ed classroom, because then it's all of a sudden, this is mostly kids getting not around their general education peers. Where's the peer model? Just like for ELs, we want them to be around other English-speaking students so that they can speak the language, they have models for it, linguistics, syntax, right? Also meaning of vocabulary, culturally. Same thing for students with IEPs. So we had to change some of the configuration and the capacity at Evergreen Elementary, because we could no longer have it so that there was only one classroom that was non-dual language, English only speaking, in order for the students with IEPs to have and be in a least restrictive environment, meaning, again, the majority of the students aren't students with IEPs. That's law, federal law. So what we did is, looking at the functional capacity of Evergreen, we decided to grandfather all the students who are in dual language, who are there. That's what families wanted. We want to keep them there. The students have relationships. That makes sense. But now we keep dual language, and so that we can have 2 general education classrooms and 2 dual language classrooms at each grade level starting this year in kindergarten, and we'll move forward, progressing over the next 5 years to fill out so that we have, again, 2 dual language and 2 general education classrooms so that students with IEPs are not, again, making up most of the gen ed population. And we keep a dual language program, which is what we want. I want to be really clear about that. Again, we support it. We have work to do in it because that particular program needs to have a real clear vision and mission for itself. We need to have a specific model. And the last part, which I'm going to talk about, I believe in the next slide, is just qualified personnel. So when we look at who is qualified and endorsed in ELL, ESL, or bilingual education, for a district that is now, again, almost 25% of the students we serve are ELs, this is the number of people that we have endorsed in this area, is only 6%. Here's the crazy thing about that number. That's just who's endorsed in it. I didn't say they were teaching it. So that's some of the challenge that we have here, is that we do want more teachers that are endorsed in these areas because that's part of our population to help serve them. But right now, if I wanted to go out there and hire another teacher that's endorsed in these areas, the chances of us hiring somebody like that, even at the beginning of the year or over the summer, is very low right now. There's just not a lot of qualified people in these areas. It's one of those areas that's hard to hire. There's other areas that are also hard. Special education's one of them. Sometimes even art teachers are really hard to hire, believe it or not. Counselors are getting rarer by the day. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight the picture, the story, because we are highly vested in our ELs. We're highly vested in dual language. We want more staff that are endorsed in EL, ESL, or bilingual education, because over there is the number of students in our schools that qualify for EL, right? It's not, and so when Kat was up there and she's talking about how are we going to serve the student population if they make up so much in the Shelton School District, that's why we have those 10 strategies to couple with our coupled with our high quality literacy that will help be in every classroom to serve every single student, including our ELs, because we own all of them in every environment. And we want to make sure that it's accessible to them and they have those opportunities. Those kids, those students, also want to read books that are of interest to them. And that's why some of our books in our libraries are also in Spanish. And we have some Mom and Comfortable coming. Yes, those are a little harder to find. So I know I've talked about student performance numbers before. Up here on this particular graph, we have our last year's performance from last year, 21-22. How did our ELs do? They did not do very well. That's in the orange up there, by grade level, 3rd all the way through 11th, which is our tested grades. And compared to non-English learners. So we know that what are we doing to better serve our ELs if even over there up at 10th grade and it's only 8% are meeting standard in ELA for English learners, folks, doesn't matter which program model you've been in, right? Doesn't matter if you were in dual language, sheltered instruction, mostly integrated, it's just not working well. So typically, in fairness, you know, somewhere around typically ELs, you would see in other districts, there's no reason why that number can't be easily into the teens and into the 20s. Eventually they exit, right? Because you're going to start exiting kids, so there's usually the kids that are here are students that may not had received EL services very long. So there's a little bit of a delay to it, and who's getting the EL services, because those students who didn't meet standard are automatically exiting. They're not going to keep existing into that population, as Kat mentioned. So by law, we have to examine the effectiveness of our EL services. And in my examination as your superintendent, I'm telling you we have to change business on how we did it. The good news is we're already changing it. And you got to see that because we did the work last year with the English Language Task Force, input from our families, input from our educators to get those strategies, and that we, again, really highly into our high quality literacy and safe and welcoming environment, because we want to make sure that we do have culturally and linguistically safe environments as well. So just want to put that out there. Kat's going to go over the next 2 slides, and then we can take questions.
So this slide just speaks to, first off, I'm really excited to do this work. I feel really vested here in Shelton and in this community with the work I've been able to do, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity at the district level. We had a Latino family night, and then we've had lots and lots of one-on-one conversations with families during the enrollment process, the Back to School Festival, our open houses. And one of the things I wanted to highlight was parents universally have the same questions. And I was just intrigued how they fit so well with our 4 initiatives, and that we are going to continue this conversation with our parent stakeholders. We have an EL PAC meeting, our Parental Advisory Committee, the first week of October, because this voice, we know it matters. We know it has huge effects on student outcomes. And then just lastly, before we take questions, Wyatt spoke to a lot of this, but the next steps as part of our Shelton Success Strategic Plan just have to do with remembering those kids are our kids. What we were isn't what we are. And because there's been so little operationalizing and so few systemic approaches to how to manage and evaluate our EL services, we do need a system approach to the systems issue. We're moving forward with this work to bring English learners and their needs to the table, which is part of why I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to be in this position. And that, we'll have the next year and the 5-year plan to continue to build this pathway for student success. Thank you.
Thank
Ready
you.
for questions?
Yes. Do any of you have any questions after the presentation? Carla, you're welcome to start.
To qualify for the EL program, it seems like a lot depends on the WIDA test. Can you speak to that very briefly, what that test is like and what it actually shows?
So WIDA, or WIDA, as it's called, is there's a screener assessment when students first enroll, and then of course there's an annual assessment because we are required by law to measure annually their progress in the language program. So the WIDA framework and standards are based on the Common Core standards, so there's alignment there. So like Superintendent Jesse said, when you have kids exiting, you'll see those students aren't counted in some of those data points any longer. Kindergarten, it is mostly a paper pencil assessment. And this year they actually changed some of the laws, and they only have to be screened in the fall in listening and speaking, not reading and writing, because those standards haven't been addressed yet. So students who score 5s in listening and speaking won't qualify necessarily for language services. And then for grades 1 through 12, it's a computer assessment, and it measures the language areas of speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And they're given a score based on that, and then we track those scores throughout their school career.
Is it all visual then?
Yeah, there are visual supports, auditory supports, and of course, written language.
When we look at the dual language program that will exist at Evergreen, a strand of it, are we still looking at 50% Spanish, 50% English. It seems like that was the model that we started with. Has that changed?
The model we started with 15 years ago was 50-50, and that was the intention with that peer model idea. Right now, there are third grade classrooms that have 1 English speaker and 18 EL students. So it's no longer 50-50,
Okay.
right? And so if we intend to be a dual language, two-way model, that's not what we have. So that's part of the development of our district vision, right? And thinking about our resources, our student population, and how we're going to be responsive to that.
Yeah, it's just, that's why we need to come back with the dual language staff, work with them. We already entered into that so that we can figure out what does the model need to be now, since it's not what it was or how it was designed to really reflect what the student population is today. And then also just the skills and kind of curriculum, the materials, strategies that need to come with that fit best, again, for our student population and our families.
That makes sense, since we need to change our model. The other question I have is the content-based shelter at secondary level. Can you give an example of that, what that would look like?
Yeah, just so the example I gave was there was more of a supportive mainstream, that math class. So an example may be a class where they are working on more of those linguistic demands of English at, in a single period or maybe 2 periods a day with an EL endorsed staff member. So anyone who's going to deliver direct services does need to be highly qualified. Then those collaborative models can be some highly qualified staff member who helps develop materials that are then used in the mainstream. So there's a subtle difference there, but it does make a huge impact. So yeah, the content-based sheltered instruction is more about the skills, and then as they gain that threshold of language ability, then they can move, be more successful in their true content classes.
Would that mean grouping together EL students?
Yes.
For those classes?
Okay.
Okay.
Which is why it's something we try and do really strategically and intentionally, because ultimately we want our students to be in all spaces, and they are in all spaces, but with that intention and the support.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Did you have any questions?
Are we trying to add in Mom and Kankobal onto the two?
Under
So,
the
like,
dual language?
Spanish and English, so like add in Mom and Kankobal as well?
It's so difficult because of the resources around those languages, the written resources and then the, qualified personnel. But we have a big push to at least hire staff who are multilingual in our indigenous languages as a start.
I have seen that advertised on our website right now, that we are looking for people that are,
Yeah. And
that can be interpreters, I guess, for that.
Yeah, and I think the part, Angela, when you're talking about that, I mean, I think the reality is when that's what gets hard, right? Like out there, you're like, oh, dual language, and it's been very highly promoted lately, and like dual language, this and that. But if you're Mom and Kankobal and there is no such thing as a certification for Mom and Kankobal, and a program for it, and materials for it, that's just an impossibility. It has to be called out. If we could do it, we would. It just doesn't exist. The resources are not there. The curriculum that the teachers have. I mean, all the things that you need to have for it. It's hard enough with Spanish, let alone in Mom and Kankobal.
Okay. Marty, did you have any questions at this time? I was curious about something because I know that newcomers are designated differently, and I'm just wondering, do we have, and maybe you don't have this information right now at this time, so if you don't at any time, but I'm just curious, I mean, we're saying these kids are our kids, so are the majority of them coming in at the kindergarten level? Is it throughout all grades? I mean, are we getting, I'm just wondering what the percentages is, because obviously it's going to be trickier. The older a child is coming in that may not speak English, and per the state of Washington, they have to have an education. And so I'm just, where's the concentration?
yeah, it's a good question, President Davidson. So we have had, I want to say 5 unaccompanied youth register or enroll at Shelton High School. whereas our kindergarten enrollment, which are primarily students born here in the community, is at about 110.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is going to stick with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Newcomers, like, it's low, it's really low. We're like in the 20s. I mean, that's how many students we're talking about. But it is about usually newcomers for unaccompanied youth for high school students, meaning that they had migrated here without guardians that come with them. And so those youth have a number of different programmatic services that support those youth. So they are handled differently, but it is also incredibly, it requires a lot of work. We want to support, that's a lot of supports to support them, obviously, how we operate.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that it's obviously complex, and our school district doesn't have as many languages as what some other school districts may be challenged with, even within our own state. But having people that are qualified to teach and speak those, whatever the multiple languages might be, is definitely a challenge. There's not an abundance of those teachers out there. So does anybody have any other questions? No. Okay. Did you have any other questions at this time?
And I think just because to end on a really positive note, when we had 150, I know Director Willander's not here, but he was there. Again, when we have 150 of our families who are non-English speaking primarily, who speak Mom and Conquable and Spanish that were there, they are super excited to be here, and they're super excited that we serve them, and that a lot of their questions came, they were really grateful that our focus on our strategic plan was safe and welcoming and was high quality literacy. That's where their questions were at, they were on it, and they loved some of the answers they received because we had a plan in those particular two areas. So that was really the takeaway from that particular event that was very highly attended.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry Matt's not here to talk about that too. But thank you both for the comprehensive report. This is great information for us to have and to better understand the direction that we're going with this as far as English language services in all of the schools as well as the dual language program, because I know those two can get convoluted sometimes. So thank you very much for the presentation. All right. Moving on to 6.04, we have the Shelton High School Improvement Plan with Principal Bruce Kipper and Marianne Marshall.
Hi, good evening, President Davidson, members of the board. We're going to start off this year with going with our secondary schools and moving on to our elementaries as we move through these presentations of the SIP. And I would just like to introduce Bruce Kipper, the principal of Shelton High School, so he can share you his plan.
Thank you. Madam Chairperson, Directors, Superintendent Jesse, members of the senior executive team, thank you very much for having me tonight and letting me present our school improvement plan for Shelton High School. First, I want to apologize, my allergies, like my eyes are just watering completely. So I don't know what's going on right now with the weather, but my allergies are kicking in. I want to also thank the admin team for showing up. June, Ed, and Jordan. I'm not sure what that says about them, though, on a Tuesday night with nothing better to do than come to a board meeting. So thank you very much for showing up. I appreciate it. Wasn't expected, but not surprised. I know that you all received a copy of this, and I want to just start off by going through the process that we used to come up with our school improvement goals. And it actually started last year for this year with the development of the strategic plan. Superintendent Jesse and I and Mrs. Marshall met on several occasions so they could share information with me that they received from particularly senior or students in high school, the high school level students, and the feedback they got. And we heard two things loud and clear. First thing we heard is high school students, like probably all students, want to be treated with respect. Regardless of who they are, what they do, how they act, they want to be treated with respect. The second thing we heard was they want to know what they're supposed to be learning. They shared with Superintendent Jesse and Mrs. Marshall that they often would go into a classroom and they weren't real sure what it is they were supposed to be learning. And I'm for easy, so I'm not for difficult. So we sat down as an admin team and we said, okay, those are the two things that we're going to work off of. We're going to make sure that we treat our students with respect, and we're going to make sure that no matter what classroom they go into, they're going to know exactly what they're supposed to learn. And so that was the start of building our goals for this year. We have department leaders in each department. So our English department has a leader, our math department, our CTE department, our visual and performing arts. All of our departments have a leader in that department that's responsible for getting feedback and information from their department members, sharing it with the administrative team, and then working collaboratively with us to develop these goals, strategies, and our structures and systems. So everybody has input. We have a leader for our classified staff also that's involved in the development of these goals. So it's not just, while some of the strategies mention teachers specifically, everybody at Shelton High School is responsible for treating kids with respect and making sure kids know what they're supposed to be learning. So with that, we have two goals that we're focusing on. The first goal we're focusing on is increasing our average daily attendance. And the easiest way to look at whether we're making an impact or not is how long is the attendance report each morning? Last year it was 14 pages. This year it's 5 pages. That tells me more kids are going to class. Now, we'll dig into the data and find out exactly what that means, but just from a cursory level, kids are going to class. It was an emphasis of ours, and I've repeated, I don't know how many times, these guys can tell you, every day, that we need to make sure we're out on campus and we're getting kids to class. That's number one priority. Kids are in class. And you know, we have our music that plays the last minute of passing period, which is that audible cue that, hey, class is starting in a minute, get there. You actually see kids running to class on our campus. Because we're out there going, hey, I need you on time, I need you in class. It's our first non-negotiable with our students. We have 5 non-negotiables with our students. The first one is on time, every period, every day. And that's what we're focusing on. Because if they're not in class, they're not learning. And I've learned in 35 years, when they're not in class, bad things happen. When they're in class, bad things typically don't happen. So we get every kid in class. One is they're learning, and 2 is bad things aren't going to happen. Okay? So the second goal we have, and the strategies you're going to see, like I remember I said I was into simple and easy, right? The strategies you're going to see are the same for both goals, because we feel, and I truly believe, that if we focus on a few things and can impact those few things on all of our kids, getting kids in class and getting kids to pass their classes, it takes care of a lot of other problems. And so I know I can't. I don't know about everybody else, but I can't focus on like 10 or 12 different things at one time. I got to keep it simple and easy, I told you. All right? So our strategies look the same for both goals. The second goal is making sure that we're increasing the percentage of freshmen that earn 6 or more credits their freshman year. That's the key. And it even goes even further, getting them to be successful the first 6 weeks of school. So, an interesting, when we looked at the data from last year, 64.5% of our freshmen earned 6 or more credits. That's not good. It needs to be better. And I'm not, and they can tell you, I'm not very patient. So we need to get this better now, and not like, we say 10%, but that's like, we want every kid to be successful. But what's interesting, out of those 64.5%, that's about 220 some kids last year. 180 of them earned 7.5 or more credits their freshman year. So if we can get them to be successful, they're ultra successful. Very few kids just earned 6. If they got there, they earned more than 6. So if we can get them there, they'll earn more than 6 credits their freshman year. But it's the first 6 weeks. We are all out on campus. Everybody we have that's available is out on campus getting kids into class and reminding kids how important this is. Our MTSS team meets weekly the first 6 weeks of school to look at data. That's how important it is. So the first 6, we have 6 weeks to get them where they need to be, and then the rest of the school year is a lot easier. For those that aren't there after 6 weeks, it becomes really difficult. It's a lot of heavy lifting, as Superintendent Jesse likes to say. So What are we asking teachers to do with both of our goals? One is authentically engage kids. I've heard this over and over, and I started using the terms myself, knowing students' stories, strengths, and needs. Authentically knowing who your students are. I've shared this story with our teachers and our staff. Is some of the best conversations I've had with students, the most meaningful, have taken place at the Huff and Puff Trail, believe it or not. Not even on campus. A lot of stuff happens at the Huff and Puff. You ever want to come by? Last year, I'm over there, and like I'm not the only one there. There's a police officer there, and there's security guards, and you know there's some bad things happening over there. And I saw one of our students, and her and I, let's say, didn't get along very well. And I walked up to her, and we had a conversation, just talking. And I asked her, I said, why can't we talk like this on campus? And she looked at me and said, first time you talked to me, you yelled at me. I said, wow, I did. I remember that. So how about we make a deal? I won't yell at you, you won't yell back at me. And it's been completely different. I saw her first day of school. I said, wow, like, so what's changed? And she goes, I lost 7 pounds. I said, I can see it. And we've had a completely different dynamic since that conversation at the Huff and Puff. She goes to class. She told me, I'm not going to be a problem this year. Awesome. That's the impact we're trying to make. And it's happening with a bunch of kids. Several staff members have told me this is the best start to the school year they've ever had, let alone in Shelton. And that's not because of us. We've helped, but it's because of the work that all of our staff is doing and the focus we have on helping kids and making sure that we're teaching kids and being respectful to our kids. So, knowing students' strengths, stories, and needs, getting them engaged early. We had a problem last year with, like, I'm walking around campus the first 10 minutes of class, and there's kids everywhere. They had passes even. I'm like, why are we letting kids out of class the first 10 minutes? So one of our strategies is every teacher has to do a do now activity the first 5 to 10 minutes of class. And I tell students, I tell teachers, you tell the students, it's me saying this. You have to be in class the first 5 to 10 minutes because that's when all the best stuff happens. This do now activity gets them started, gets them engaged, and guess what? They forget they need to leave. They forget they have to go to the bathroom, conveniently. We've also tweaked our bell schedule and built in some extended periods at certain times of the day so kids have more time to go to the bathroom between classes to take care of what they need to take care of. So, the third thing we're asking teachers to do is sharing a learning intention and success criteria every class with students. This, and I've got some examples I'll show you of both the do now and the learning intentions. This is to address the issue of the kids don't know what they're supposed to learn. And these are stated in as I can statements, I will statements. This is from the kid's point of view, I will be able to do what? By the end of class, what will I be able to do? So I'll show you some examples. Like we have some work to do, but teachers have really ran with this. We started this work last year, actually with our teachers on learning intentions and success criteria, because after these conversations with Mr. Jesse, we knew that we weren't being transparent with learning. We were like hiding what they're supposed to learn. Like when I fly on a plane, I want that pilot to know exactly what he was supposed to learn how to fly that plane, you know? So it shouldn't be a secret, you know? And then we've got a couple of other goals that are more universal with across our advisory classes. Goal setting is a real skill that kids can learn, and that it's really powerful when kids learn how to set goals and follow through and monitor their progress. And then, of course, our transition activities, making sure that we're helping kids transition from junior high school to high school. So really what we're trying to do three things. We're trying to provide students with information they need to know before they get to high school through the transition programs. We're trying to provide every student with a rigorous, engaging, fun experience. And we're trying to provide, and we will provide supports for those students that need it. Every student gets support through the systems and structures we've placed, but we know that some students will need extra support. And putting things into place, having, like I said, we have an MTSS team that looks at data and really kind of digging into the data about who actually needs the support and which students need that extra layer of support. This is from our orientation. When I first told staff we're going to have a 2-day orientation, because one day you can't tell kids what they need to know in one day. You can't give them an experience in one 4-hour time frame. They told me nobody will come. I said, well, tell them they have to come. Well, you can't make them come. Yeah, I can. You tell them they have to come, they will come. We had over 300 freshmen show up. We actually made parents register their child ahead of time. And we bombarded them with emails. Like, don't forget to register your child. I don't care, you got them. Sorry about that, but I will apologize, but I won't apologize. But we had over 300 freshmen show up. We had more students the second day of orientation than we had the first day. So additional kids came the second day. Mason Goose and Karen Rivas are two seniors that are in the climber crew. I talked to both of them. Not only was it beneficial to freshmen, it was beneficial to our climber crew upper class students also. To see themselves as leaders and as difference makers on our campus, and really to establish relationships with kids like you're not alone here. You don't have to be afraid of the seniors. Like, they're here to help you. And that's the kind of environment we're trying to create, is that everybody's in this together, and if everybody's not working together, it doesn't work. So everybody has to work together. Students, staff, families have to work together to make this work. The one on the left, that's Matt Hirsch. If you've never seen Matt Hirsch in front of a group of 300 freshmen, you should come over and watch him. Like, he is all energy. He's actually playing a game of Simon Says with them right there. And you can see there's very few students standing up because he fooled them all. And then in the middle one, they're doing a bonding exercise with their advisory class. And then on the left, that is Miss Fortier's advisory class. She took a picture with them, and she has that up on her page. And so all of our freshman advisors, one is they were selected strategically, and that these teachers will follow these freshmen all through high school until they graduate from high school. And then these are just some examples of our Do Now activities. So I kind of break them down into 3 different categories. You've got SEL type of Do Nows, which is like check-ins. I know one teacher has an electronic check-in that she uses every week or so to check in with her students. Hey, it's electronic. They don't have to share it with anybody else. It goes straight to the teacher. She's the only one that sees it. How are you doing today? What supports do you need? How can I help you? Is there anything bothering you? Share something great that happened to you over the weekend. And so she gets it. So now she knows, hey, I got to focus on Johnny over there. He had a rough weekend. So I know I need to kind of focus in on him during class, and nobody else knows. Just her and Johnny. I love the one on the bottom, like which one doesn't belong. I even emailed the teacher and said, what's the right answer? And she said, there is no right answer. It's all about the student being able to justify their answer. So for instance, if you pick the heart, it's the only one that doesn't have straight edges. Or if you pick I don't know, how many sides is that thing on the bottom right? It's the only one that doesn't have a color on the inside of it. So everyone could be the answer. But it's getting the student to think about why do they pick it. And actually, it's actually a great skill on how to justify and make an argument. Not an argument in a bad way, but an argument in a good way. How do you make a claim and justify it and support it? So it seems like it's non-content, but it really falls into being able to make a claim. 2 on the right, I love because these are actually one is from culinary, the other is from Life After High School class, and they share this with kids every day. This is what kids see when they walk into the classroom. So it's got Do Now activity, it's also got what they're going to do, the schedule for the day. It's got on the bottom, you'll see, it's hard to see, but it's actually got a learning intention on the bottom. I can explain the difference the different personality types and why they're all valuable in a group setting. That's exactly what kids are going to have to learn today. And before the class is over, the teacher is going to check in with them to make sure they learned it. And if not, they're going to decide, okay, what do I do next? Did only a few kids not get it? Or did a whole bunch of kids not get it? That informs the teacher on what they do next. And then the one on the left is actually a content. It's a financial math one. It's actually stuff that they had learned the previous day, and he's checking on them to see did they get it. So every class, when kids come into class, the teacher has something for them to do when they first get started. That's to get them engaged and get them going and get the brain muscle moving. This is, I think, a really good example of what a clear learning intention. So the learning intentions, I'm learning about the types of data collection, qualitative versus quantitative. But the success criteria, the kid will know when they've got it if they can create qualitative and quantitative data about an object. That's what they're going to be able to do by the end of class or by the end of this lesson. The lesson might be 1 day, it might be 2 days. And then I like this one because the teacher has questions to get the kids thinking too. So, why did we spend several days building boats out of straws and duct tape? So I think that's a great question for kids to ponder. Why did we do this? And then these are just examples of I actually went around and I think June took the pictures of the two on the left. That when you walk into a classroom, this is what you see. So every classroom you walk into, you see something that looks like this on the board. You see it, an I can statement. I can do something. This is what I will be able to do. And that addresses the concern that kids don't always know what they're supposed to learn. I love the one on the right because he's even got a video attached to it. So if kids need support, they've got a video there that they can go to. That's what we're doing. I know it's a lot. I talk fast. I told you I'm impatient, right?
It is a lot, but
So-
it's good stuff, so thank you. That was a great report, and I'm going to start with all of you if you have any questions that are coming to mind.
I just want to compliment, last year we had the issues of safety and the fact that you have a concept, you've implemented that concept, you're out there, you're getting the children, the kids in the classroom, you're keeping them, as you said, if they're out there, they have opportunity to do stuff they shouldn't be doing. And I think that addresses one of the key issues we faced last year of how do we take from post-COVID to integration to learning. And I'm very impressed. It's a really good strategy, and I think it could be duplicated in the other environments.
Thank you.
And I would like to say congratulations on building relationships with teachers and students. I think that is a key to getting kids engaged in learning. If they have a relationship with an adult on campus, they are more likely to be involved in their education. So well done.
Yes, and I'm speaking from what I see, because I do have a 9th grade child that I drive to school in the morning, and I personally have seen you in multiple locations throughout the parking lot or in front of the sub or out almost by, not the huff and puff, but like the crosswalk that was there. I saw you, speaking to different students every day that I've been driving through. I have seen all of you out there as well, because I recognize you now. I know I don't. I've met a few of you a few times, but it is really nice for me having a child, because obviously that's my most precious gift that I have, that I'm dropping off, and to be able to see that you are out there engaging actively with all of the students in multiple locations. You're not just a fixture right in one spot. You're actually going to different places. So I really have appreciated seeing that. I've been hearing good feedback from my own student. She seems to really be liking. She was nervous about going to the 9th grade, as I think everybody is at that age when you're, faced with a new school and upperclassmen and teachers that you don't know in an environment you don't know. And the orientation was a great thing that you did, and I was laughing as you were talking about your emails. You did send a lot of those, and it wasn't lost on me as a parent that it said that it was a mandatory thing that all ninth graders were expected to go, I think was what it was said. And when you say that to parents, we go, oh, okay, well, I've got to figure this out and get them there. I know that probably wasn't the easiest on a lot of parents because it was a half day, 2 days, but to have that amount of kids come and be able to get used to the campus and see where their classes were, meet their advisory teachers, meet upperclassmen that were there as helpers that they could see. I thought all of that was a great thing that was done. And I do like the I can statements. I think even as an adult and in courses that I've taken or meetings that I've been in, sometimes you're like, what are we here for? And to make that clear each day is, that's great no matter who you are. So I appreciate that. I think that goes into respecting the students too, because, it's like, what am I here for? What am I learning? So I really appreciated your report. I really appreciate the delivery of it, and having seen it myself, I know that it's not just words. This is what you guys are all doing, and it's been really nice to see this year. So thank you.
I would be remiss if I didn't share one quick story with you. Superintendent Jesse contacted me before school started. He said, hey, I'm going to come over the first day of school, and I want to be useful. So I expect to have a list of kids in their first periods, because kids had to go to just get first period the first day, and then they got their schedule when they were in first period. So I said, okay, June, make sure we got a list for Mr. Jesse. He shows up, I give him his list. I'm walking with him by the sub, and there's a freshman female student. He goes, do you know where you're going? And she said, yes, I do. And he says, how do you know where you're going? She goes, because I went to freshman orientation. He said, cool. So the kids that went, they understand, what we made it really clear, and I think the Climber Crew kids did an excellent job. They planned it. The Climber Crew kids planned it with help from their sponsors, but they were really the ones responsible for planning it. We got some changes that we're going to make to it to make it better even. But yeah, I think that's the best thing we can do. Is I tell people it's the second hardest transition. The first is going to kindergarten.
Yeah.
This is the second hardest transition in school.
No, I think it went really well, and it's been nice to have a lot of the sporting events for kids to go to. It looks like those are well attended as well, because my child keeps making me take her to those as well. So it looks like the kids have a lot of opportunities to get together and root each other on, and like they're having fun. So that's nice. So I don't know if there's any other questions or comments at this time. Thank you both very much for the presentation. All right. Now we get a budget status report for May, June, and July, and that's going to be Brenda who gives that to us.
Good evening, President Davidson. I gotta make it shorter for me, for these tall people, and Shelton School Board. We're playing catch up this month. We were buried in budget prep. No, I don't actually. Thanks, Bruce. So we are playing catch up this month. So you see 3 months in your packet. I'll just go through with the latest balance of July instead of going through every month with you. But I do want to point out in general fund in June, we were quite low. And it's the blessing of the ESSER funds, because we have to pay them out and then we have to wait to the following month to get them back. So it's a cash flow, playing game to do that, but that was what happened in June. But so we'll continue to see that probably for the next couple of years till we get through all those funds. So we ended July with $938,220.32 in general fund. Capital Projects Fund, the first part of June, we did receive a little over $1 million from our non-high districts that came in, and we did have some Met bills that needed to continue to be paid to finish that project. So we paid those out in June when that money came in. July balance ended with $303,246.17. Debt service fund, the county changed that up a little bit. Our payments do happen June 1st, but they pull it out on May 31st now to prepare to make the June payment. It used to come out on June 1st. So our bond payment for all the construction did come out on May 31st in that balance. July, we ended with $2,731,441.86. Our next payment's due December 1st, so it will come out on November 30th. Associated student body, you see a little lower balance in July. That's because they start gearing up for everything they're doing in the fall. Dance team buys their uniforms, cheer, that type of thing. So they ended with $553,742.92. Transportation vehicle fund, there's really no activity in that, but you will see in July it did go down by $150, and that's because in accounts payable, a general fund payment got keyed into the wrong fund. So we will be writing a check out of general fund to pay that back. We caught it when we were balancing. So we ended that with $247,637.64. We have our scholarship funds. I do have two that I'm getting ready to pay that Allison gave me for your Drake scholarship, so that will be happening this month. That ended July with $207,089.38. The Mike Johnson Memorial ended with $3,180.51, and Bolt Memorial, $25,765.07. There really hasn't been any activity in that except the interest earnings over the last 3 months. So that's what we have there. You will be seeing the August budget status when we close the books with the financial statement presentation towards the end of October. So we're starting into that process now.
Okay.
So.
Are there any questions for Brenda on the budget status report?
I'd be here all night if I So I'm going to pass and learn as I go.
You can come visit.
Yes, I think that's always a good thing to do.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I think there aren't any questions. So
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, on to the consent agenda. And as you can see, there's the proposed minutes, personnel report, different general fund warrants, some payroll warrants, associated student body funds.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the consent agenda has passed. We do not have any discussion and action items this evening, so we are going to go into board member comments. And tonight I'll start with you, Director Best.
Thank you. Well, first, I just want to welcome Carla. And I have to look at the phrase. I'm terrible with names. Amanda, right?
Angela.
Angela. I start the first letter. It's good. I really appreciate having the student perspective on how the policies and programs that we develop with the school board and with the superintendent impact and get the feedback from the students. So I really encourage you to be as participatory and vocal as you can, and I really look forward to your participation. This is going to be an interesting school year. I've already, because people know I'm on the school board, I get a few comments about why isn't my bus running? And I say, would you please call the school, the bus barn, there are issues, et cetera. But so far, in comparison to past years, it's been fairly quiet. And so I'm looking forward to, well, on my side, I don't know what it's like down at the district office. I'm really impressed with the Shelton High School presentation, and I'm really looking forward to some positive changes this year as we communicate to what we're actually doing and how that strategic plan is actually going to implement. And then I think at the end of this year,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. I'm looking for the reports at the end of this year compared to the end of last year so that we can show the trajectory of the progress we're making. So with that, that's all I have.
Thank you, and I apologize for that. Of course, I have a child calling me in the middle of a meeting. All right. And Director Should I, Johnston?
Knudsen.
Knudsen Johnson. Okay.
Knudsen is fine.
Knudsen, okay.
I'm very excited to be on the board. I loved hearing all the reports. I've been retired from teaching for 7 years, and I haven't thought about a lot of these things for many years, but I'm very excited to hear about plans and goals and things that will bring our students to school and want to be there. So I am delighted to be a part of this school board. And the other thing that I heard tonight that I really appreciate is what our English language learners look like now and how change happens. And that's part of education. We go one direction and then we pull back and we go another direction. It's my 33 years in education, we went and replayed some of the strategies we had 10 years before. But I'm very glad to hear that we're looking at the whole picture of our dual language and English language learners, and we're trying to set up support in all areas. It's not just a small program at one elementary school. So I know that will take time to build, and I'm excited about the direction that it's going. And that's all.
All right, thank you. And Angela, do you have any comments?
Well, I'm glad to be here today. I'm as glad to be able to represent my school. I know my school is like really small and we all see each other as a family, which is why we also call our teachers by their first names. And it's going to be nice being able to talk to you guys.
Yes, I agree. And so for my comments, I do want to welcome both of you this evening. And no matter how small or big the school is, it's wonderful just to hear student voice and to hear what your experience is at that school, especially as it builds. And Carla, it is wonderful to have your educator's perspective. It's already come out tonight, definitely. You bring some expertise in some areas that I think is going to be very nice. I want to thank the administrators tonight and the superintendent, because not only am I seeing when I drop off my child at the high school, but when I go over to OBJH, I have seen all of you standing out there as well. So greeting kids, and it wasn't just a day or two, it's been consistently. So I've also, as I stood at a soccer game today, had teachers and students say that they've noticed that presence and that that's meaningful because it's not just what you're hearing from the school, it's that you're there and you're seeing changes going on at the school instead of just being told about it. So, that is nice to hear. I think that it's also really nice for me as I was there at the soccer game. The principal of the school was out there. Several teachers were out there. I've seen that at many of the sporting events that I'm taking my two daughters to. It's nice to see the people there at the school coming out to support the kids at their school that are participating in those events. I think that's always really nice to see for the relationship building. I'm very excited for the beginning of this school year. Just after COVID and the way that all went, I was looking forward to this year, but you never know how it's going to go. And it just does seem like it's been able to start off kind of as a fresh start, a breath of fresh air, that things are a little different. And it seems like some very good strides are being made. I appreciate the reports that we had tonight, both dual language and the high school student improvement plan were both just full of great information and does highlight how our school district is changing somewhat. So both of those have been really good. With that, I am going to say that we do need to take a recess for an exempt session. We do have an item for some proposed bargain agreements, and there is possible action for that. So at this time, we're going to close this part out, and we are going to go to exempt session and come back if there is action. I think we need to sign some documents first, though, for Allison, and then we will recess. And you, as a student rep, you are welcome to go at this time. You don't get to participate in the exempt session type stuff, so.
Good to know.
So, yes. All right, so we are coming back out of exempt session. I guess, what time is it? It's 7:45. And we do have action on the item that we have here. So is there a motion?
I move to accept the Shelton Custodial and Maintenance Professional and Shelton School District contract proposal.
And I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the proposed bargain agreement with the Shelton Custodial and Maintenance Professionals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the agreement has passed.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second
All right,
motion.
it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. It's adjourned.
Matt would dial it in.
He'll dial in just to say that.